I never liked Reynolds and Associates. But today, everything changed. I never liked the law office of Reynolds and Associates. Not because there was anything inherently terrifying about it, but because every time I stepped inside, it meant another decision about my family was being manipulated. And today was no exception. The spacious office was lined with towering bookshelves filled with thick legal volumes. The golden glow from the overhead lights reflected off the polished mahogany table, creating an atmosphere that felt cold and heavy. Sitting beside me, Vanessa, my older sister, looked as if she were enjoying a casual meeting rather than attending the reading of our father's will. Vanessa Anderson, brilliant entrepreneur, the face of the Anderson legacy. Me, Evelyn Anderson, the family's shadow, always compared, always the weaker one in my father's eyes. Attorney Robert Reynolds, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat before beginning. According to the last will and testament of Mr. Harold Anderson, the entirety of his estate, including the mansion, company shares, and all financial assets will be left to his eldest daughter, Vanessa Anderson. I knew this was coming, but knowing didn't make it hurt any less. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a satisfied smirk. Of course, she murmured, as if the outcome had never been in question. More than $50 million worth of assets, nothing for me. But then, Attorney Reynolds turned another page. However, prior to her passing, Mrs. Margaret Anderson, mother of both daughters, left behind a separate document specifically for Evelyn. Vanessa's brow furrowed, her smirk vanishing in an instant.
Mom?
I froze. Mom left something for me. Reynolds reached into his briefcase and pulled out an aged, yellowed envelope. My mother's handwriting was scrawled across the front. To Evelyn, the truth has been buried for too long. Attached to the envelope was a small silver key. But it wasn't the key to this house, or to anything I recognized. My heart pounded. I glanced at Vanessa, but she looked just as bewildered as I was. There was something our mother had never told us, and I was about to find out what it was. The lawyer slowly pulled out an old, worn-out brown envelope. My mother's handwriting was clear on the front. To Evelyn, the truth has been buried for too long. Along with it was a small silver key. But it wasn't the key to this house, or any apartment I had ever known. My heart pounded. I glanced at Vanessa, but she looked just as confused as I was. There was something our mother had never told us, and I would have to uncover the truth myself. I clenched the key tightly, my mind drifting back to the past. My mother, Margaret Anderson, was nothing like my father. My father was a hard man, cold, calculating, always obsessed with power and wealth. But my mother, she was the only one in the family who ever truly loved me. Whenever Vanessa bullied me, or my father scolded me for not being good enough, my mother would pull me into her arms and whisper, "You don't have to be like anyone else, Evelyn. You just have to be you." But everything changed when I turned 12. Mom grew quieter, often lost in thought. She and Dad started arguing late at night, their voices hushed but intense, followed by muffled sobs that she always tried to hide. Then, one day, she abruptly left Anderson Enterprises without any explanation. I never knew what had happened that year, but maybe this letter held the answer. I turned to Vanessa, and that's when I noticed something strange. She wasn't just surprised by the letter, she looked tense. She wasn't meeting my eyes. Instead, her hands gripped the armrests of her chair a little too tightly.
Why?
Did she know something that I didn't? I slipped the letter into my coat pocket and held up the key. "Mr. Reynolds, do you know what this key opens?" The lawyer shook his head. "I only know that before Mrs. Margaret passed away, she insisted I keep this letter and deliver it to you at the right time. And she was very adamant that Evelyn must know the truth." "What truth?" I glanced at Vanessa again, and this time, I caught her staring at me. And that's when I realized something. She didn't want me to open this lock. She was afraid of what I might find. And that was exactly why I had to do this. I knew this key would lead me to a secret my family had hidden for too long. But I had no idea that the truth I was about to uncover would change everything forever. I would lose the last shred of trust one had in the only family I had left. And I would discover that my father, Harold Anderson, was not the man I thought he was. And what my mother left me was worth more than any multi-million-dollar inheritance. But was I ready to face the truth? I had no choice. The small silver key sat in my palm, its cold metal sending a strange chill through me. I knew I couldn't let this mystery go unanswered. If my mother had left this behind, it had to lead to something important. There was only one place that came to mind: the small wooden cabin by Windmere Lake. The place my mother used to escape to whenever she needed to get away from the world. It was about a 2-hour drive from the city, tucked between towering pines and crisp, fresh air. My father never spoke about it, but I remembered that every time my mother disappeared after one of their fights, she went there. And I also remembered my father hated that place. That meant I needed to get there immediately, and I had to do it alone. I stepped out of the law office and instantly felt something was off. A black car was parked across the street. I couldn't see anyone inside, but my instincts screamed at me someone was watching. Vanessa. I didn't know, but I couldn't take any chances. I quickened my pace, climbed into my car, and started the engine without hesitation. 2 hours later, I pulled up in front of the old iron gate of the lakeside cabin. Everything looked just as I remembered. The drooping tree branches, the shimmering water reflecting the golden hues of sunset. But something was different. The front door was locked. Strange. My mother never locked this place. I took a deep breath, pulled out the silver key, and inserted it into the lock. Click. The door swung open. Stepping inside, I had no idea that what I was about to find would change everything I ever knew about my family. The cabin looked exactly the same as the last time I saw it. Dust-covered bookshelves, the old rocking chair, the stove that had not been used in years. But one thing was not the same: the floor in the corner of the room had a faint cut in the wood, like a hidden trapdoor beneath it. I walked over, knelt down, and brushed away the dust covering the floorboards. And then I saw it. A small metal ring nearly concealed beneath an old rug. I swallowed hard. This was it. With all my strength I pulled it up and the trapdoor creaked open. Beneath it a staircase led down into a dark basement. My heart pounded wildly. What had my mother hidden here? The basement was small and cramped, containing only an old wooden desk and a filing cabinet. The documents were covered in dust, but when I shone my flashlight on them, I realized they were all legal papers. And the name on them? Harold Anderson. My father. I flipped through the yellowed pages. Contracts, property transfer agreements, memorandums. And then I found an old photograph. My father and another woman. But it was not my mother. It was a younger woman with unfamiliar blue eyes. I pulled out another document: a birth certificate. Name of the child: Vanessa Anderson. Mother's name: Diane Miller. No, it could not be. Vanessa was not my mother's biological daughter. She was the child of another woman. My father had a whole other family before he married my mother. My entire life had been built on a lie. And my mother had known. That is why she left these documents for me. She wanted me to know the truth. But if that was the case, why had she never told me? And why had my father kept it a secret for so long? I did not have the answers yet, but I knew one thing: Vanessa had known. And she had done everything to keep it buried. But now I knew. And I was not going to stay silent. I took out my phone and snapped pictures of every document. I was not sure what I would do with them yet, but I knew one thing: I needed to protect this evidence. But just as I started climbing the stairs to leave, there was a noise. Footsteps right outside the cabin. Someone was here. Someone had followed me. My heart pounded against my ribs. I quickly turned off my flashlight, holding my breath. The front door creaked open. I froze. A voice echoed through the cabin. Evelyn, I know you are here. Do not bother hiding. Vanessa. She had arrived before I could escape. And this time I knew she would not let me walk away easily. The darkness in the basement surrounded me. My heart pounded as Vanessa's footsteps echoed on the wooden floor above. Vanessa knew I was here. And I knew she would not let me leave with the truth. Vanessa, did you really think you were clever, Evelyn? She was moving slowly through each room, searching for me. I held my breath, pressing my back against the wall, gripping the phone that held all the evidence. I had two choices. Try to escape, gambling on luck. Confront Vanessa and force her to admit the truth. And I had already made my decision. I stepped up from the basement, pushing open the trapdoor. Vanessa spun around, her eyes flashing with surprise. She had not expected me to reveal myself. I found it, Vanessa. I lifted my phone, its screen still glowing, displaying the photos of the documents I had taken. Vanessa did not look scared. Instead, she smirked. Vanessa, so what do you think you can do with those pieces of paper? I looked her straight in the eyes. The truth is the truth, and I will not let it stay buried. Vanessa clenched her fists. Vanessa, you do not understand anything. Evelyn, you think your mother was a victim. No, she was the one who destroyed this family. Her words made me freeze. What was she talking about? Vanessa stepped closer, her gaze icy. Vanessa, do you think Mom kept those documents out of fear she found out about Dad's secret and wanted to use it to control him? I shook my head, refusing to believe it. Me know if Mom had wanted to manipulate Dad, she would have done it long ago, but she did not. She left these for me because she wanted the truth to come out. Vanessa's lips curled into a sneer. Vanessa, and you think she was a saint? She did not speak up because she knew that once the truth was exposed, it would not just bring down Dad, it would bring her down too. Her words sliced through me like a knife. I did not know what to believe anymore. But there was one thing I knew for sure. Vanessa had known about this for a long time, and she had done everything to keep it hidden. And now I had all the evidence that could destroy her. But before I could react, she shoved me to the ground. My phone flew from my hand, skidding across the floor. Vanessa lunged for it, trying to grab it. I had to do something right now. In a split second, I grabbed a heavy book from the table and slammed it against Vanessa's arm. She yelped, stumbling back, just enough for me to snatch my phone and bolt for the door. I sprinted through the front entrance, racing across the darkened yard, my breath coming in gasps. Behind me, Vanessa screamed, "Vanessa, Evelyn, you will regret this." But I did not stop. I jumped into my car, slammed the door, and hit the gas. The dim lights of the cabin faded in my rearview mirror. But I knew this was not over. I had to bring these documents to light. My father may have hidden them for years, but now the truth would finally be exposed. The next morning, I took everything to a lawyer. Within a week, news of my father's financial scandal had spread everywhere. Vanessa. She tried to stay silent, but when the police started investigating, she could not hide anymore. My father lost everything he had spent his life trying to protect. So did Vanessa. And me. I was no longer the forgotten daughter. My mother had left me a gift, the truth. And I had used it to bring justice. It may have been late, but in the end I had claimed my place. The truth can be hidden, but it can never stay buried forever. Injustice and favoritism may last, but there is always a way to break the cycle. Never let anyone tell you that you do not deserve what is rightfully yours. Family is not always a safe haven. Sometimes they can be your worst enemy. Stand up for yourself, because if you do not, who will? What do you think about the story? Have you ever been treated unfairly like Evelyn? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like and share if you believe the truth deserves to be revealed. Justice does not come from silence, it comes from those brave enough to speak up.